I'm Sherrie, as Andra already said, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make the most of Magento events because we're at one. So yeah. So I was here last year for the first Mage Titans, thanks to Alessandro. And this was our crew of speakers, in case you weren't here, and also the BitBull team that helped organize it, and the Space 48 team. We had some interesting adventures beforehand where we learned we may be good at technology, but not so much paper maps, though we did learn yesterday if we had David with us, then we would have been much better off. But eventually we figured out the metro system here and made it to the cathedral. So there's a lot of Magento momentum in Italy before I get started with the actual making the most of Magento events. But there are over 90 certified individuals here, 7 solution specialists, and over 103 total certifications, which is pretty cool. There are over 4,000 live Magento domains in the last 3 months in Italy alone. Over 19,000 Magento 2 downloads since we launched Magento 2. And Italy is actually number 8 globally for Magento 2 downloads. These are the top 6 contributors in Italy. Got Fabrizio, Antonio, Andra, Mauro, Alessandro, and Riccardo. If you guys are here, can you stand up so I can embarrass you, but not really, just recognize you? Come on, I know you guys are here. No one's in the room. Antonio's standing, Alessandro's already standing. You're not, stand up, stand up. Yes, you. you're like, who, you. Okay, awesome. Everyone give him a round of applause. I skipped ahead a few. My finger got stuck. So in 2016, there were over 1,100 contributors like these guys and ladies. The Magento community presented over 800 talks on Magento or at Magento events, produced over 120 podcast episodes centered around Magento. That wasn't just Mage Talk, in case you were wondering, there's actually several. The Magento community organized and produced conferences and meetups in over 30 countries, wrote 7 books about Magento, contributed to official product documentation, wrote over 1,100 blog posts to raise awareness and education, and answered thousands of questions on both Stack Exchange and the forums. So everyone give everyone a round of applause, because that's awesome. Like, that's a lot. Basically what I'm saying is you guys are all the best. So the Magento community is a group of innovators who thrive on collaboration. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm easily distracted, and things are happening everywhere. And really, the value of Magento events goes back to who we are as a community. Innovators are lifelong learners, and I think that's really what attracts us to creating Magento events in over 30 different countries. Last year, as I mentioned, there were over 800 presentations about Magento or at Magento events. But at the end of the day, what really matters is what did we learn. I'm also managing 2 slide decks, so I apologize. That's my fault. When you leave at the end of today, you want to know like how to move your business and yourself forward in the Magento world, right? Like that's why we're here. Or at least that's why we tell our bosses that we're here. So I'm not going to really tell you how to prep for events. There's a lot of blogs out there that are really good about that, like this one from Karen Baker on Imagine last year. But I do have, I think it's 6 steps on how to make the most of events while you're here. Number 1 is know your goals. So this one actually is a little bit before the event, but really knowing, whoa. How does your machine work? I just went like 17. Okay, spoilers. Anyway, so this is the only one that really takes place before you're here, but know your goals. So look at the agenda and know like what sessions you want to make sure you don't miss, which today we're a 1-track event, so you don't want to miss any of them, obviously. But know who's going so that you can set meetings with them in advance if there's someone where you know you want to get on their calendar while you're there. Don't sit too many meetings because that's not fun. And then know what you want to learn in order for this to be a successful event. So know at the end of the day, if I come home with this knowledge, that's going to mean the event was a success for me. You have a very responsive keyboard. Number 2 should be pretty obvious, but say hi to people while you're here. If everyone else looks too intimidating, you can come say hi to me. I promise I'm not scary most of the time. But relationship building is one of the most valuable parts of being at an event. That's something that's way more difficult to do online. So when we have these opportunities, it really matters to make the most of it. The Magento community really is super, super friendly. So just introduce yourself. Even if it looks like it's a group of people who have known each other for years, probably they've known each other for 6 months, and this is the first time they met offline, and they'd love for you to be a part of that group. And also don't forget that if you want to get in touch after the event, which you probably will, you'll need to make sure you know like their Twitter handle or their email or some way to get a hold of them. So, number 3, make sure that you, make sure that you write down key takeaways. Write them down because that way you remember later. For me, I remember things, even if I don't look back at my notes, I remember them better if I write them down. And that can be key takeaways that are for you, not necessarily what's important to the speaker. Sometimes for me, like the biggest takeaway I have was like a random rabbit trail the speaker went down that's actually not relevant to their talk, but for me, that was like the most significant part. And then you're gonna wanna be able to convert those takeaways into action steps, which we'll get into in a minute. So this is just an example of my notes. This is my notebook I take everywhere, and these were notes I took at a conference, just to prove that, yes, I do this too. There was nothing in there secret, don't worry. So number 4 is make sure you share with your team. This could be through Slack, this could be at a meetup, this could be in Confluence, or some other internal note-taking system that you have with your team. But it allows your team to anticipate change, to see the value in attending events, and it helps them plan to be at future events, or at least understand that there's value in you being at future events. So this is just an example of some of the notes that Ben and I share with our team. We'll oftentimes see things at events that we think our event team would be interested in for future events. This mosaic here, if you were at Mage this year, you'll recognize I saw this at an event, and then we did it this year, which was pretty cool. And then other things will happen too, where it's just like just notes that maybe like our hosting manager should know about, or things like that. And number 5 is obviously apply what you learn, or maybe that's not obvious, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to apply what you learned today, which is pretty important. But before you apply it, I always want to make the caveat, this is actually from a blog post by John Bonini, but before you apply what you learned, don't forget to think through what you brought back. Is it relevant, is it realistic, and is it refined? You want to make sure that you're not just like throwing random things around that maybe aren't relevant to what you're doing. So just take the time to categorize and prioritize those things. Some of what I do with events I actually took from this book, The First 90 Days, which I really like. I was reading it when I first started this job because I was terrified I was going to mess it up. I was super excited to finally be at Magento. But the way you can apply that to events is really think about what can I start applying now, what can I apply to my next project, and what can I start applying next year. So just an example, when I came out of an event, I was thinking through all these questions that people were asking me, like who should we reach out to, how can solution specialists get involved, why was so-and-so invited and they weren't, how can we identify top contributors. And those questions combined with an event are actually what resulted in the Magento Master Program. So you might recognize some of these people. There's quite a few of them in the room. But that actually was born out of an event combined with thinking through questions that were coming in internally and externally. And then number 6 is make sure you keep those conversations going. So make sure you said hi and you have their contact information so that you can still talk to them later. And then my next suggestion would really be to find a local meetup. So there's now almost 80 of them, actually probably over 80, there's like 80 of them on my radar around the world, and these are a great way to really keep in touch with people between events. If there's not one near you, maybe you can start one. And why does all this matter? Well, quite simply, you don't want to have to come up with one of these emails that's like, hey, boss, this is why I should go. This is a canned email that they sent me. Instead, you want to be able to prove the value of why you're at events so that when the next one comes up, whether it's you justifying your time or your boss justifying your time, you know that events are valuable for you and that they're a good place to be. So make sure when you walk away, you can say, I learned this from this person, and we'll apply it by doing this. So just as an example, I lost the font, so sorry it runs off the screen here. But for example, you learned how to make the most of events from me, and you'll apply it by finding at least one thing from today's, not this week's, sorry, Mage Titan speakers that you can apply to improve your work. So we do this too. So please find me sometime today and let me know about your Magento experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. I'd love to hear it. You can also find me on Twitter. That's my email address, pretty simple. So thanks, guys.